So today, as promised, we are going to be making pulled pork and we're going to be doing inside of an Instapot. So this is the size Instapot that I have right here. So this is an 8-quart model. It is pretty big. I realize that. And you may not have one that's exactly like this, which is perfectly fine. As long as it can saute and pressure cook, then you are just fine. So you're going to be able to see how to make this. And actually, this is not my recipe. I'm following a recipe. I will also link that down below for you. So I'm gonna need a knife. Love this knife. Super sharp, so I gotta be very, very careful. So what we're gonna be using is we're actually be using a pork tenderloin. And we're actually gonna be cutting this into 4 pieces. And if you've never used the Instapot before, I'll link that down below as well. Honestly, I love it. So I like using it because it's almost like you have a, oh my gosh, I can't even think, a crock pot, but it's gonna cook even faster. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna cut this open and I'm gonna get this here on our I'm gonna go ahead and open this and then I'm gonna put this on the cutting board. All right, so what we're gonna do here is we're actually going to, my hands are completely washed, but we're gonna go and we're gonna cut this so that you have 4 pieces. Just like that. And then you're gonna wanna take a rub of your choice. I'm actually using the Everglades rub. And you're just gonna wanna sprinkle this very, very well. There we go, sorry about that. All right, so I'm gonna go and I'm gonna season this very, very well on all sides. I like this particular rub because it actually has a barbecue type flavor to it. I have made my own rub before, but I haven't made a good rub for this yet. So that's why I'm just gonna use one that I like. All right, very good. So once you have all sides with rub on it, what we're gonna be doing is we're actually going to need some olive oil because we are actually going to do all of our cooking inside of the Instapot, all of it. And that's kind of cool. All right, so that's about it. Perfect. So now I'm gonna go ahead, wash my hands again, and I'm going to be grabbing the olive oil. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and hit saute, and it'll automatically come up with a setting. That's perfectly fine, but it's actually getting hot. We're gonna wait just a few minutes for this to get hot, and there it is. We'll be putting in some olive oil into our Instapot. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and put in 2 tablespoons. That's probably a little bit more than 2 tablespoons, but we're gonna put in some olive oil down in the bottom. And now what we're going to do is we're going to put our tenderloin pieces down on the bottom. And what we're doing is we are actually going to saute these bad boys. Let's see. We want to make sure that we get the outsides nice and done. Don't worry about getting the insides done. They will actually cook within the amount of time, but we just want to kind of get the outsides nice. So we actually want to sear each side for about 2 minutes. There we go. And the trick is that you don't want to move it while it's being seared. That one's being a little bit fishy. There we go. All right, we'll just let that sit for another 2 minutes. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna flip it to another side. These are looking so good. All right, 2 more minutes. And if it starts splattering, then you may want to get a splatter screen, but it also means you probably put in too much oil. All right, and we're gonna go ahead and flip it one more time. All right. We're gonna let that sit for 2 more minutes and then we'll remove these. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and take these bad boys out. And I know that you don't have smell-o-vision, but let me tell you, my house is starting to smell really, really good. All right, so at this point, what we're gonna do is we're going to take some chicken stock, chicken broth, and we're actually going to pour it in because we want to get all the tasty bits off the bottom. There we go. I put in, I think, a little bit more than a cup or so. Honestly, I just poured it in. So you don't have to be exactly precise with this. Just pour some in because honestly, it's all going to come out in the wash. Plus, that's something I like about cooking is that you're not necessarily bound to exact measurements like you are with baking. Okay. All right, so I think I got everything off the bottom. If yours was really, really dark on the bottom, then you can always hit cancel on your Instapot, and that way it's not going to continue to cook because we don't really need it to cook. All right, so now we're going to go and we're going to put in just a couple teaspoons of apple cider vinegar. I don't like putting a lot because I am not a huge fan of the flavor. But we're also going, since we already have the chicken broth in there, now we're going to add a cup of your favorite barbecue sauce. And I'm actually using today sweet brown sugar from Kraft because I like my barbecue sweet. Very, very sweet. All right, so honestly, I just chunk a bunch in there. I'm not gonna lie, I'm just put stuff in and hope for the best. All right. So we're gonna go with that, and then I wanna mix it. I'm still using a wooden spoon to kind of mix it all together. I know it looks gross, but trust me, you are going to love this. And then everyone's gonna think that you spent like forever on it, and it's gonna end up being one of your signature dishes. So I taught my eldest daughter how to make this, and it's not her signature dish. She makes this really good dish with sausage, but this is definitely up there for her. So it's another one I like that she makes. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna put the meat back inside. And you'll notice that I'm just kind of putting it around the edge. If yours is not as big and you have to go and layer it a little bit, that's perfectly fine. I have a huge one, but again, that's just because I have a big family. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and we're going to put the lid on. Sorry, and I know that was loud, but it's a good thing that you can kind of see what we're doing. So here, I want to make sure that I put the knob on sealing. It's very important that you have it on sealing. All right, so now this is why you probably bought an Instapot. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go and press pressure cook, and this particular recipe calls for an hour. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put this up to an hour. I actually have two recipes for the Instapot, for the pulled pork. This is the first one that I'm going to do. That way it's a lot like your slow cooker. So the way that the Instapot is going to work is it's actually going to build up pressure inside, and once it does, at that point, that's when the timer will start. So I'm gonna see you back here after this has built up pressure and it has been 1 hour. All right, and so now we are finally done. So it took an hour and about an hour and 10 minutes or so. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna take this, and remember it is on sealing, and I'm going to flip it over to venting. So that is actually a quick release. So what's gonna happen is steam is gonna come shooting out of here. So I will be moving the camera so that you don't see that, because it'll get really bad. But what it's gonna do is you want to wait for this to come down before you open up the lid. Yeah. So a lot of pressure was in here, and so once that pin goes down, we'll be able to remove the lid. All right, so our pin is down. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and we're going to open it. Oh yeah. So this is what we're left with, and I want to show you just how tender this is. And I know it looks a little bit wonky, a little bit weird, but this will actually peel right apart. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna take some out, I'm gonna separate it with 2 forks, and then we'll be making some sliders. All right, so I have 2 plastic forks because I wanted to show just how little effort it actually is in separating this pulled pork. I'm not putting hardly any pressure. It is literally just falling apart. That is why I love my Instapot so much. And yes, it did take an hour, but honestly, you don't get it any better than this unless you go out, and then still that's a lot more expensive than what we did right here. Isn't that awesome? So that's it. So what I have is I have some slider rolls. They are Hawaiian slider rolls. I'm just gonna go and put some pulled pork right on top. Now you could always add, if you like really saucy pulled pork, which I do, then you can totally put some more sauce on there. I also like to add cheese. I also like to usually do some crispy fried onions. But look at that. And that's how you make pulled pork in your Instapot.